Folks, welcome into another edition of Bullet Points. I'm your host today, Kevin Masseri, here with Mike Bunt to break down the UB Toledo game. And really, we haven't spoken since last week to break down, I guess, a little bit the double NIU wins, sloppy wins there at times against the double NIU wins. 79-68, 70-60 last week, and then the 92-76 senior night showing against Toledo to drop to 0-2 against Toledo. 0-1 against Ohio, 1-0 against Kent, and 0-1 against Akron, like 1-4 there, and 12-1 against the rest of the conference. Putting that into perspective, we did see Ohio drop to Bowling Green here tonight. UB had the 1 seed, as Mike tweeted out earlier this week. UB had the scenario. Kent looks like they're going to take care of NIU. UB was going to be playing for the 1 seed after all of that, all said and done, all the metrics in and out. Ohio evens out. Toledo started to even out a little bit at times. They looked bad at times and then just recently turned it on again, especially in the last 2 games. Mike, it was there for the taking, the final game of the year, and a win and a number 1 share of the conference and a number 1 seed and the NIT bid, Mike. How does that leave sit with you right now as you thinking about this game?
It hurts, but I think the thing that gives me that makes it hurt not as much is the fact that they just got blown out. Let's be real. Toledo was just a far superior team today. So even though all the scenarios played out that would have been great had UB gotten another win on Friday, they never had a chance. They were getting killed from the moment this game got started. So I'm not really going to be regretting not getting the 1 seed. If anything, I'm still more depressed about the Miami game earlier in the season and the Akron game without Josh Mbala. But today was what it was, just a team that was vastly superior, and they showed it on the court.
Not what you want to see a week before Cleveland. You don't want to say a team's vastly. You want to say a team won in a buzzer beater or won at the end of the game. That's fine. But you don't want to, regardless if that's Toledo all the way down to Central Michigan, but you definitely don't want to say that the team is far superior, vastly superior in terms you want to use on March 1st, Mike. That's alarming to me that you don't think that they're going to be in the semifinals now. UB has really
I didn't say that. I didn't say that they couldn't be in the semifinals yet. I think what today was, it's what we all feared during this 9-game winning streak. We all said they're winning all these games that they should be winning, but what are they going to do when they face another top team in the MAC? They struggled against Ohio at home. They struggled on the road against Toledo. They didn't play well against Akron. This team has struggled against the better teams in the MAC outside of their win against undermanned Kent State team, and today kind of gives you those answers. They're still not that great of a team. They beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, and they really don't show up in their big games. And a lot of that is Toledo. I've been saying for a couple months, I think the Rockets are the clear top team in the conference. I think Kent State might be positioned to upset them just because of how feisty they are defensively. But Toledo is just so much better than everyone in this conference. They have shooters, they have drivers, they play decently on defense, and you just saw it every time UB tried to get back in it. They would just trade buckets. They never were in this. They never really made this a single-digit game at any point. Toledo just had an answer for every time you thought maybe UB had some momentum in them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess more the point there was that UB staring at the 4v5 game like, pretty head-on. And even if they're able to come away against Akron, they're looking at a Toledo game in the semifinals. And to be vastly superior at the Toledo team it doesn't bode well once you get past an Akron game, which is going to be a grind. And then the next night you have to come back with a team that you've struggled against this season. The path is challenging for UB. They really need to see Ohio in that 2v3 game. Either way, I mean, UB still has a chance at the 2 and the 3 based on if Ohio loses. It doesn't really matter overly if they're the 2 or the 3. But I guess, I mean, if you care about playing Ball State compared to Central or Bowling Green or the bottom of the conference is really mixed up. It's really messed up down there. Central Michigan lost again. Miami's kind of surging a little bit. They're going to probably be the 7 seed most likely. It's looking like Miami right now, and Bowling Green might come in as the 8 seed. So, do you care about Miami against Ball State? No. So I don't think the 2 or the 3 matters too much, Mike. But you do want to see Ohio in the second round and save that Toledo game till the end. I mean, in fairness to Ohio, like I think anyone would want to see that, not just UB. I think there's
Yeah,
probably a
they're
bunch of teams.
struggling. You know, they were at one point this season the top team in the
Probably.
conference for a little while. But right now, I don't even know if you have them. I don't even have them in the top three at the current moment. The way they're playing, I mean, they might finish seeding in the top three, but I think it's pretty clear. Toledo overwhelming number one, Kent number
Yep.
two, and I might even have Akron as the three, just because Ali is a great player, and when you have those Akron fans in Cleveland, you never know what you're gonna.
Well, think
what you're
about the
gonna
other
get.
competitors. They're in Cleveland, and you 1-0 against UB, 1-1 against Ohio, 2-1 total. Maybe they are the third best
I
team.
think that's
I don't
why it's
know.
pivotal. It's pivotal for if you're UB, you need to beat Kent State on Friday. I don't know how that all falls out though. So you think about it, because let's assume right now, obviously you got Kent State at 2, you got Ohio at 3, UB 4, Akron 5. So Kent has one less loss than both UB and Ohio. So assume UB wins. They'll be tied in the loss column with Kent. And you're probably going to assume that Ohio is going to be NIU. So you're going to have 3 teams tied. Now, if you do the head-to-head for those 3 squads, you'd have, in this scenario, UB would be 2-0 against Kent, 0-1 against Ohio. So they'd be 2-1. Ohio would be 2-1 because they got the win against UB and they split with Kent. So Kent would be 1-3 in that scenario because they split with Ohio, and we're assuming that they're going to get swept by UB. So that's the best case scenario, I think, for UB is for Ohio to win on Friday and UB to beat Kent, if my math is right, because then you would have a scenario where you have Toledo 1, Ohio 2, UB 3, Kent 4, Akron 5. Then you're getting rid of one of the Cleveland teams in the quarterfinals, and assuming that you get the 3 seed, you win your matchup, you're playing an Ohio team that's struggling in the semis. There's still a path to go to the finals in that scenario. And I think that's what Ohio's rooting for too. I think Ohio's rooting to have UB as in that matchup.
No one wants Kent. Yeah.
Both teams want each other because they're both looking at each other. Ohio's saying, well, we beat you by 20 in your own house. And UB's saying, we just do not want to play Akron in the first round. So I think that's the best scenario right now for UB. Get a win on Friday and hope Ohio wins, because you don't want to play Akron, especially in Cleveland in the first game.
But we have to get some clarity. I thought we had clarity to this point actually going into this game. And then we had a scenario tonight that is going to maybe put UB in a scenario where they could be tied with Akron as well. So I don't know what the MAC is going to do in terms of saying, well, if you're double tied like UB is, maybe you're right and they stick UB in the 4 spot.
And for you guys that don't know about this scenario, we were all over this over the weekend for bullet points. So for the whole season, we've been playing on the assumption that the MAC was going to determine seeds based on winning percentage if you weren't able to make up games due to COVID. Well, then this bombshell comes on over the weekend saying that UB is the 3 seed at the moment and Kent State's the 4, even though UB has one less win and the same amount of losses as Kent. And as we were explained by Brian Wolf, who is the UB SID for basketball, he said that the game against CMU that will not be rescheduled for UB is considered a no contest. So essentially a team that is, let's say UB for this example, probably going to finish 14-5 would be tied with a team that is 15-5. But it also goes for the reverse. They'd be tied with a team that was 14-5 that, well, I'm explaining this horribly, but you'd be tied either way with the win column or the loss column. But Kev, you want to explain the Akron scenario that we're just talking about? It gets complicated because there's a scenario where, according to the tiebreaker, UB would be tied with Akron, but they could also be tied with Kent State and Ohio. But there's no scenario where Kent State and Ohio could be tied with Akron. So how they're going to determine
they're going to have to go to winning percentage, Mike. I don't know that I believe the non-winning percentage scenario because of this reason. You can't have Akron tied with Ohio and Kent. That's not fair. Because you can't give UB the win. That's not fair to Akron, even though they don't care. They're sitting in the 4v5 game. but you can't give UB the win. Actually, that's not fair to Kent and Ohio, really. But then you can't give them a loss because that's not fair to UB.
Yeah.
So like, what you're gonna have to you can't based on what we said.
I wish we had a chart to show this. So basically, what Kevin's saying is Akron wins out. They're 14-6. Say UB loses to Kent on Friday, they'll be
13-6.
13-6.
They'd
And
be tied with Akron.
Say Ohio would lose to
NIU.
They would be 14-6. Well, there's a couple ways it could play out where certain teams would be tied, and we'll just let it happen the way it happens. But there's a couple ways it could have played out that would be very confusing. But hopefully, we'll just avoid all of that on Friday night.
Well, in a loss scenario, they're the 5 seed unless Akron loses. So if UB so in your scenario, if UB loses to Kent State, they're the 5 seed. That's pretty straight up. Like they would be tied with that. Even if Ohio comes down and loses, it wouldn't matter because UB lost to both of those teams. So UB would then lose a tiebreaker to Akron and Ohio. They'd be the 5 seed. So in a loss scenario, that's actually the easy scenario. That's done. They'd be the 5 seed. The MAC might be rooting for that because then they don't have to put out any statements. They're the 5 seed. And then Akron and Kent would be in a tiebreaker scenario there for who plays UB, because technically if Ohio loses, they're in a tiebreaker scenario. They went 1-1 against each other, and they'd be in a tiebreaker scenario. They both, I think Ohio would have the tiebreaker, right? Unless Akron beat Toledo, because that would be the first tiebreaker. Did Akron beat Toledo? They just went 0-1, so they didn't. So Ohio would actually still gain the 3 seed. So it doesn't really matter. If UB loses, it's still Akron UB. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah. So there's no scenario in a loss. That's easy. That's actually the easy scenario. UB could still get the 4 if Akron goes ahead and blows it in a game where they may or may not play their full strength. A scenario we've talked about at Bullet Points all the time was before the rule change, or we knew about the rule change, we had a big discussion about should UB rest players against Kent State, because if they lost to Toledo like they just did, the game might not matter, right? The game might not matter. You're in the 4v5 game. Getting the rest might be the most important thing for your guys going into Cleveland, not playing full strength against Kent for no reason. So we had a heated debate on should they play 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, etc. of their big 3. Now that scenario I think is off the table, but what's going to happen if UB wins against Kent State? Then you have that scenario where you're talking about where UB's tied with Kent and Ohio, as well as tied with Akron, because they're tied in the win column against Akron. So the MAC is saying that's a no contest. We're going to consider that a loss for terms of being tied with Akron. So the MAC might have to come out and say, since UB's double tied, it's winning percentage. Yeah. I don't know that UB is going to get the benefit to get to the 3 seed anymore. I really don't. If Akron wins their game, I think it's off. I think that game against Kent doesn't matter, but we'll need clarity, because it doesn't make sense to be double tied. You can't just automatically put them down in the Akron tiebreaker, but you can't just automatically put them up in the Ohio tie. Like, how do you determine which tiebreaker they're in? So I do believe that they're going to have to, in that double scenario, I think that they're going to have to be automatically the 4. I really feel strongly about that, unless Akron loses. I feel strongly about them being in the double tiebreaker scenario and them being just the 4 seed based on winning percentage, which technically is what they should be. I mean, they got totally gypped, but we got to call it what it is. It is what it is. The 4 seed is what they would be winning percentage. So did they really get gypped? Yeah, maybe they would have beaten CMU, but in fairness, you can't just then bump them up to the 3 seed. Like, Kent's going to be the one complaining about that. So either UB or Kent's going to be mad at this scenario. And I don't know how you determine, are you in the Akron tiebreaker or are you in the tiebreaker with Ohio?
Yeah, Kev, it's just so confusing. I'm looking at the standings right now, and it's, God, if you have a Kent team that's 15-5, you got a UB team that's 14-5. Yep. And you have an Akron team 14-6.
Yep. It's tied with them both.
It's crazy.
What we were told over the weekend by communications director Brian Wolf is that it's the same. You look at it the same way. So,
well, you know what? This is I know it. I know we're actually dwindling viewers because they're probably like, this is the craziest stuff in the world that they're talking about.
But it is. It is crazy.
It is for sports nuts like us. This is really interesting. And I think the way they'll have to break it down with this tiebreaker. I know you say you think it's going to end up with the 4
Got to.
inevitably.
It's
I'm
got to
not
be.
sure because I think the way you're going to have to do the tiebreaker, if Kent loses and they end up being 15-5, and Ohio wins and they're 15-5, UB's 14-5, and Akron is 14-6. I think you got to separate it. You got to do a tiebreaker, I believe. Kent and Ohio. I don't think you can have.
So you're saying they break that tie first, and they would put Ohio,
and then do a 3-way from there. I just
no. That's not fair to Kent. Why doesn't Ohio have to be in that?
So I don't know how they're
Kent's getting screwed either way.
Here's the thing. If Akron, or you do the UB Akron tiebreaker first, but then Akron won, so then you're looking at UB at the 5, Akron
Right.
as a 4.
So then it doesn't matter. The game wouldn't matter in essence.
And then Ohio Kent would be 2-3, whoever wins that tiebreaker. I mean, I guess that's a fair way. I think the thing that's
you have to go to winning percentage
for us is that we just were going off of win percentage the whole time, and it just feels like this was unnecessary. They were trying to, I think, make it more fair, but in the way they're making this confusing where like now we're going to have all these, maybe they have an answer to it, but this is one of those where you really wonder, like, do they know how they're going to solve this if it plays out that way? I don't know. Like remember last year, even with COVID, we didn't know. There was a scenario where we thought that UB was bound to be in one position, and then we were told like a week before the season that Ohio had a chance to still be in the running for something, even though conceivably
that was
they
like football
had no
last
chance.
Year. Yeah, so, I remember that debate.
So, and the league has had no statement.
If UB would have lost that one game, they would have been out of the MAC championship.
You know, I know we obsess over mid-major basketball more than the common person, in that the league doesn't feel like it owes anybody an explanation, but it would be really nice and convenient if the Mid-American Conference could just come out with a statement and tell us
they're going to have to now. That
this is how we're breaking it down, because I don't think anybody has a clue right now, and we're probably one of like 10 people that actually care, but there's no clarification on this right now.
No, so we're going to leave it at that. Like, as soon as we get clarity, we'll be tweeting it, from our accounts. I'm sure it'll be up on the message boards at some point. We're going to get that stuff up there for you guys because if you care to follow into our show, I think you kind of care about the seed that UB would get into Cleveland. I think you care about the path. One of the most condescending responses I hear, whether it's the Bills, whether it's, if you like baseball, which is, RIP baseball right now, but whether you're, an AL East fan, your path matters. I don't like to hear the condescending, like your path doesn't matter. Have you ever played in a tournament yourself? Like your path matters. Like look at UB the year they were ranked. They ran into a buzzsaw that made it to the tournament finals. In Josh Mbala's old school.
Yeah.
So
I'll go to my grave thinking that team had the talent to go to the Final Four.
They ran into a buzzsaw. So you tell me that the path doesn't matter. And the year prior, they get a really talented Kentucky team.
Yeah.
Like other paths they could have made a run then.
North American pro sports. We always talk about championships and how that's what determines the great teams, and it is how we determine what the great teams are. But there's a lot of factors that go into winning a tournament.
And path is a big one.
Who's hot? What's your path? And do you have luck involved? There's a reason why we say every year in Cleveland, what type of officiating are you going to get? How are teams going to adjust to playing in an NBA arena compared to playing in a college arena? There's a lot of different factors. That's luck. You think of Toledo. They've been one of the better MAC schools in basketball for the last decade, yet they haven't won a MAC tournament in over 40 years. So who's to know if they're going to blow it again this year? Right now on paper, they look like the overwhelming favorites, but who knows? Maybe they go to Cleveland, they shoot 4 of 22 from 3 in the first game, and they get upset. I mean, this is a team that almost lost to Central Michigan just a week ago. So there's a lot that goes into it. And path, I'm with you, Kev.
You can't sit here and tell me you think that getting Akron is the same as Story Ball State. I'm sorry, you just don't. You're just saying that. You're not being rational. Yeah. Playing Ball State in this conference where there's 5 teams playing Ball State in the 3v6 game is a bigger advantage than it normally would be in an NFL tournament, and maybe in the NCAA tournament, in other tournaments. Maybe it's not a big deal. In the MAC in 2022, the 3v6 game is exponentially better than scoring Akron in Cleveland. And, the UB is going to go and win in the 4-5 game. You're like, see, it didn't matter. But that's not the point.
No.
Like, I'm not sitting here saying they're going to lose to Akron for sure 100% and the tournament. I don't think anybody said that. I'm saying that's a grinder. Look at what happened last year when they beat Akron in overtime and then had nothing left against Ohio. They had just ran Ohio out of the gym, but after an overtime game against Akron, they had nothing left.
Is it any coincidence that the 4 teams that have owned the MAC over the last 20 years in the MAC tournament are Akron, Kent State, UB, and Ohio? They're the 4 fan bases that bring the most fans to the tournament, which you need your fan base to keep you going during a 3-day tournament where you need to win 3 consecutive games. In whether we admit it or not, officiating can be slanted based on crowds that are in attendance. And matchups wise, like nobody wants to play Akron and Cleveland. That's a death sentence. And even like you said, they escape Akron if they're in the 4-5. What are you going to do? Play Toledo in the next round after they just had a gimme against Miami, Ohio, or Bowling Green? You're going to play a fresh Toledo team after spending your all against Akron, and then after that you have a test against Kent State or Ohio. I mean, yeah, definitely need to get as easy a matchup as possible. This UB team, I would still pick them against Akron, but
I probably would too, but I'm certainly not picking the Akron, Toledo, Kent path.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that's the path I pick, or even Ohio. Like there's no way that's the path I pick.
So let's talk about this game a little bit because it is a post-game show. Anything useful that you can take out of this game other than Toledo just looks like they're incredible?
I can't take anything away from this game in terms of, because you're going to have the negative fans that you see everywhere. At times on Twitter is a bigger than, and then you have the message board positive fans, and they're going to tell you, well, Cleveland's all that's always mattered. So unfortunately, like, it's tough to take anything away from it, because in fairness to the positive fans, Cleveland is all that matters. In fairness to the negative.
Just got a comment from Sports Talk Buff. Said, as bad as this game looked, honestly, Toledo was hot shooting all game. They knocked down contested, uncontested.
Yeah, that's the take. That's the take that was not normal for them. Mike, you've seen them shoot that though. This is normal for Toledo.
They do it.
They can play bad.
Yep.
But this is the normal for Toledo. There's a game or two in there they didn't do this. 75% of the time they do this. So this isn't
trauma. I have the trauma from watching them do that twice against Ohio. Right. I think against Ohio this year.
This isn't NIU.
I think in the 80 minutes against the Bobcats this year, Toledo might have shot like 57%. Like, I would love to know their shooting percentage as a team, because they're unconscious at times. I think if you're going to play Toledo and you want to actually win the game, you gotta be all over them. You gotta be in their face. You need to force them to put up ugly shots. I felt, I don't want to be hard on UB because I do think they just ran into a team that was on fire today and playing well. But the style of what UB was playing is never going to get it done in a million years against Toledo. UB was chucking up shots, and then Toledo would be one pass down the court, layup, another shot, 2 passes, open 3. You can't outscore them. I know, and that's how UB plays everybody. That's how UB wins games. They try to outscore their opponents, and I know that's the object of the game. But when I say outscore, not really playing the best defense at times, just knowing that other teams that can't keep up with them, and you can't do that against Toledo. If you're going to beat Toledo, you need to hold them in check,
right?
Frustrate them.
And we got some updated KenPom numbers. Ohio drops all the way to 117 in the KenPom metrics. UB drops to 123, right neck and neck. That's 14 seed, 15 seed potential, 14 seed, 15 iffy potential.
I'll take 14. The MAC winner will get the 14 unless it's Toledo. They'll get the 13. I think Toledo can still get that 13, but I think everybody else is playing for a 14. And the only reason why I say that is I think the MAC still has enough respect with the people the
Okay.
selection committee
All right.
that
No use arguing 14 or 15. It's not.
I
There's
know,
no
I know,
use.
but can you remember like a 15 seed MAC tournament champ? I can't.
Because there's been good teams the last 5 years. If Toledo gets upset,
even when I was in college at Ohio, even the bad MAC teams were getting 14 seeds because normally it was the year the Bobcats were
there was not a double. There was no 4-team playing game.
The year that
everybody
Ohio was a 9 seed in the MAC tournament itself, they got a 14 seed going 22-15 that year. So I don't know. And we'll see another comment.
I mean, for reference point, Oral Roberts was at 15 last year at 125 Ken Palm.
So it can happen. Another comment. What happened to the Bulls defense from Oates to Weitzel? And I got a pretty simple answer. They used to recruit guards that would be all over you. They had guys like Devontae Jordan. They had guys like Dante Carruthers. Those guys are in your face. They make life miserable for you.
Guard defense, in other words.
They get steals defense. So like UB didn't have the best defense at that time, but they had the perfect defense to play an up-tempo game because they created turnovers, they forced horrible passes. They knew they could outscore anybody. So they could be aggressive. Right now, you just don't have the guards to really to do that at this current moment. Rondo Segura is a fine player, but you're not going to be able to get a ton of steals and easy baskets from guys like him. And the truth of it, too, love Mbala. Mbala is a ferocious guy. So he's not the issue with the defense. One of the best defenders in the MAC. But some of the other forwards on UB, like David Skogman, can be a little bit slow at times. And some of the wing players aren't always the best at being in the proper position defensively. They just don't. It's not that for a lack of hustle, I think, at times. I just don't think they got the guys that really have that defensive mentality. And with Oates, he was able to have a guy like Dante Carruthers or Devontae Jordan because they weren't the main offensive weapons on the team. Their focus was primarily defense first. And this team really just doesn't have that.
Yeah. They don't have guard defense, and that's what Mike's getting at. Some more updates out of 2020, 112, North Dakota State 15, Eastern Washington 124-15, Little Rock 128-15. I mean, you're playing against fire. I do think the MAC has enough respect to get like the last 14, sure, again, in a bad matchup, most likely in a 3-seed matchup, very possibly. And that goes for every team, Ohio, Ken, and UB right now. Really, only Toledo is looking at the possibility to be in their own land.
You get the Bobcats in as a 14. You pick them in the first round against whoever they're going up against. The last 2 times, Virginia, Georgetown, those were Ohio Bobcat victories. So don't kill me, Bulls Nation, right now. But you get Ohio at 14. I'm picking them to win in the tournament.
Toledo jumps to 81.
Toledo, I think they're safe as a 13. Right now at 81, if they're to win the MAC tournament, they're going to get another couple wins against teams right around that 100 line.
Probably that's what Ohio was last year, 81 at 13.
That'll probably get them into the mid-low 70s, depending on how things play out with other teams. I think low 70 might be good enough to get the final 13, one of the final 2 13s, because some of the teams they're competing with are pretty quality. But you know how it works. Some of the favorites in these tournaments are going to drop. There's going to be some lower talent level, lower Ken Palm ranked teams that are going to win their conference tournaments, and that'll help whatever the MAC winner is maybe move up a line overall with seeding.
Fair enough. And I guess we'll kind of wrap up this game with this game. Obviously, we talk a lot about seeding, talk a lot about NCAA seeding. This game, kind of to wrap up the point, I do think this is the Toledo you'll see on most nights. So I can't sit here and say, well, next time they'll get us guys. They did it to them the first time. They took a little longer in the first game, but in the last 10 minutes, they were absolutely dynamite. That's about the best case scenario, honestly, is that you didn't get the best for 30 minutes and you got their average self. In this game, they were good the entire way. So even in something in the middle, like 25 minutes of good, 20 minutes of good, still puts you in a bind because UB struggled even with 10 or 12 minutes of good from Toledo the last time they played. I'm not going to sit here and say that this is a Toledo version that you won't see again. I think you'll see it in the first game easily. I think you want them badly to match up against Ken or Akron badly in the next round and hope for the best. and hope that you can score more than Kent State can score, which is a good matchup for UB. Hoping you can get by Ohio, or hoping Bowling.
You just want to hope that Toledo gets eliminated before you ever have an opportunity to face them. That's what you're hoping for.
Which is a scenario for where the path comes in for UB. You get Ball State, you score Ohio, or you score Ohio losing to Bowling Green again. That path is now the best path ever compared to the 4-5 slot, which you have to play.
Don't even talk about that. You are right, but I booked a nice hotel in Cleveland, anticipating
you have a small chance neither of them are in the quarterfinals.
I know,
or semifinals. You have a small chance of that happening.
I booked this hotel in Cleveland, anticipating a great weekend. UB was in the middle of their 9-game winning streak. Ohio had the second 23-4 record at the time. I'm thinking this is going to be great. I got a 45-50% chance of one of my teams going to the NCAA tournament and celebrating in Cleveland, getting some drinks with my wife. And now I'm like, am I even going to have a team on Friday? And I still should.
You'll probably have a team on Saturday, but I'm pretty sure there's a chance you definitely don't have a team on Saturday.
I better get a team on Saturday, because if I don't,
I think the best case scenario is you get them both against each other on Friday.
Honestly, that's what I'm hoping for. Just get me one. Just get me one to Saturday, and then I'll be.
But there's a small chance that you don't see either.
If they both lose in the quarters,
I think one loses in the quarters and one could lose in the semis.
Yeah, sure. If somehow something like that happens, the trip is going to end up being all about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or maybe seeing if the zoo's open in early March where it's going to be 45 degrees out. Because
just save some money and bring it on home Friday night, man. Just after
Saturday
morning.
We already have the hotel booked Thursday, Friday, and I'll be honest, I'm not a big spender normally with these hotels, but we got a 4-star place for the
with
weekend.
COVID though. Won't they let you cancel?
I think I'm allowed to cancel the Friday night, but the wife is looking forward to it. We're gonna have a good time regardless.
So on Saturday the game's at 7. Are you saying Saturday night, or are you leaving right after the game? You're gonna drive home.
The plan, we're staying Saturday, but if one of our teams are in it, but we would be staying at my buddy's house, OU grad.
Okay.
So
saving
because those Ohio University alumnus have hospitality. They're very
apparently
nice
up to Cleveland apparently, and live in Cleveland.
Midwest hospitality. So but either way, it's going to be a fun time. I still recommend any UB fans, any MAC fans, go make the trip. It's awesome in Cleveland during the MAC tournament. The biggest crowds you'll ever see for MAC games. People are out drinking. Quarterfinal Thursday is kind of boring. As far
I never go.
But semifinal Friday and championship Saturday, when they have some of those Ohio teams rocking, it can be fun, especially if UB can get there. UB has been known to bring good crowds, and if they get matched up against an Ohio or a Kent State, that arena, Rocket Mortgage Arena, it can be on fire. People talk about the Sabres when they used to be on fire, the Bills when it's on fire. But if you're a MAC fan and you get a crowd of 8, 9, 10,000 for a championship style game, that is some intensity that you don't normally get. So those are some of the funnest games that I recall watching.
Yeah, for sure. So there you have it. I've been a bunch. I've been to Cleveland now maybe 4 or 5 times, more 4 or 5 with the Bills too. So been there a bunch. Lots of good time, lots of good stuff going on there. So head on over. I mean, the Thursday times are weird though. I know that's a difficult day. I think you start off with the 1-8 game at noon.
I think it's 11 now. I think it's 11. They
4 or 5 game to follow.
So
you need to take Thursday, Friday.
Well, here's the thing. Tough. I think the 4 or 5 game is the 11 a.m. game. I think
before the 1-8. No, the 1-8 game's first. The 1-8 game's always first. So the 1-8.
I think those are
Toledo will match up at 11, whatever it is, and then UB Akron would be at 1:30, and then the 3-6 game or 2-7 game.
Yeah, you're right. Pardon, I was wrong. So UB would mostly, if they're in that 4 or 5, they'd be playing probably 1:30.
That's tough to make. It's tough to make. It's tough to make. When is the 3-6 tip?
The 3-6 is at 30 minutes after game. It looks like 30 minutes after. So that's probably something around like 4 o'clock ish. Let's see. It doesn't have a time, but it says 30 minutes following. Oh, no, wait. The 3-6 is the last game of the day. So that'd be 30 minutes after the game before. But
yeah, it's more like 6 or 7. That's way better. It's like way better.
Yeah, way so better. They obviously don't know the exact times for the 3-6 and the 2-7, but the 3-6 you'll be playing later in the evening.
2-7 probably tips at 4:35, 4.
Yeah, I mean it's
the 3-6 probably
later
tips
afternoon, earlier evening.
So you might not have to get, if you get the 2-7 and 3-6 games, you would have the 4:30 game and then the like 7.
I mean that's ideal for me. I mean that's what I'm hoping for. I want, honestly, just give me UB in Ohio in the 2-3 somehow.
In the semis, yeah.
In the semis, you guys will make fun of me for a day. You'll talk crap, but at the end of the day, I'll have a team in the championship either way. and then, of course,
whom are going to get rolled by Toledo.
Of course, if Ohio wins, you guys will support my Bobcats in the championship. And if UB wins, well, I'll go from rooting from the Bobcats.
We do have Rob Ryan on record saying he will root for Ohio. He does not want Toledo.
That is a sign of growth and maturity for him. So I'm very happy about that. So
we do have that to
but yeah, man. About. Friday's going to be interesting. Honestly, that's what we're all waiting for. We just need to see this all play out, and then once we get that clarity, we can figure out what's going to happen. I still think this UB team and my Bobcats can win the MAC tournament. I think things look grim right now. Obviously, Toledo's the favorite. Kent State's my second pick, but in Cleveland, anything can happen. It's craziness down there. You never really know. So I know things aren't looking good for UB after this loss today, but don't count them out yet. There's still possibilities out there. You never know what's going to happen to Toledo. And if
Kent State's going to be coming in on an 11-game winning streak.
Well, best time to get them. I mean, I'm telling you, watching Kent the last month, they're starting to get a little cocky. You're starting to see some of that Kent State of old, of where they like to let you hear it when they do something against you. They're getting a little overconfident right now, and they have some good reasons to be feeling good about
the problem. The problem is, Mike, Kent State has the opportunity to play for the 1 seed. If they win, which they're going to win against NIU in a 55-44 barn burner, like I don't know what's going on down there, they're going to be playing for the 1 seed. Like they're rooting for Toledo to drop because they beat Toledo twice. They would be the 1 seed. They have a ton on senior night. They have a ton to play.
Toledo have left?
Bowling Green. So
Toledo's going to kill Bowling Green. So I mean,
that's what we said about Ohio, though.
I didn't say that. I was hoping for it, but
in theory they should. But Kent's got a lot to play for. Between dropping from the 1 to the 4, that's a lot. I mean, UB's looking at 3 or 4. Like, are they going to play the card where playing Akron or playing Ball State doesn't really matter? I hope not, because it does. But in their mind, it doesn't matter.
Kent needs to win, because if there is a scenario where they can fall to the 4, they obviously want to avoid that. So, that's
and you're going there on senior night in the 1-4. They're playing for the MAC championship potentially.
I'll say this: if you're asking me like to pick who do I think is going to win on Friday?
Yeah, we're not doing a pregame, so yeah.
I'm not confident in UB.
So what do you got?
I don't think UB is going to go to Kent and win, and I'm not saying that to be negative. I'm just saying, like it's a tough place to play.
It's tough to play there when they're 500.
Yeah, and you have the Ohio whistle, which. There is a different whistle when you're playing Ohio in Ohio against Kent and Akron. Right. There's a different whistle, and the refs can deny it all that they want. We've seen it too many times, and I even see it against the Bobcats. Like when they're playing those teams, for whatever reason, crazy things happen when you play at Kent and when you play at Akron, and they're going to have a loud crowd. It's gonna be intense. So UB's gonna have to bring their best game to win on Friday. Hopefully they will. So I can have some more delightful scenarios when I make my trip. But I don't know. I don't feel confident at this point.
All right, Mike. Well, that's it for Bullet Point 716. We brought you every content we could, a good 40-minute show here from Trainwreck Sports. I'm Kevin Masseri. Mike Bunt will be right back at you, probably trying to get to you Friday night if we can, sometime this weekend at least, to break down the matchups after the Kent game. And we'll be bringing you any tiebreaker scenarios that we hear. Loss, almost assuredly the 5th seed. Win, we don't know. We have no idea where they'll end up. I don't even think they'll get the 4 with the loss. I think it's the 5 seed with the loss. And then with a win, we're thinking the 3, but we don't have confirmation on that. So, we'll bring you which we can coming up here as soon as possible this weekend. So follow along on the Twitter account for anything that we can to bring you any of those scenarios. From Bullet Point 716, Kevin Masseri, Mike Bunt, getting close to Cleveland. So good night now.